Hello and welcome to All 24 News World News Program. Let's begin with the headlines. Zionist forces intensify attacks, arresting freed Palestinian prisoners. Meanwhile, Algeria urges urgent Gaza reconstruction as concerns mount over the worsening aid blockade. In our news as well, the French president reclaims oversight of Algeria's crisis dossier from Bruno Retailleau, denying ministerial claims on deportation. Meanwhile, Algeria pushes ahead with strategic partnership. Also coming up, the US president halts all military assistance, opening the door for possible peace talks. Moscow welcomes the shift while European nations scramble to send arms to Kiev. And later on, Trump's new tariffs escalate tensions, triggering swift retaliatory measures from Canada and Mexico. The global trade landscape braces for further fallout. This and more shortly. Welcome back to the details. First in our news, a young Palestinian previously wounded by Zionist occupation forces succumbed to his injuries on Tuesday at Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Balah, adding yet another name to the growing list of martyrs. Meanwhile, the assault on Gaza's coast remains relentless. Occupation gunboats fired on fishing boats off Zaweida, forcing desperate fishermen to abandon their only source of livelihood. Further south in Rafah Al Janina neighborhood, a young Palestinian girl suffered a critical head injury from drone gunfire. Rushed to the European hospital, her life now hangs in the balance. And yet another blow to Gaza's desperate humanitarian efforts. Zionist occupation forces stationed east of Rafah blocked ambulances from reaching the Rafah crossing, sealing off a vital route for the wounded and sick seeking treatment abroad. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society reported Tuesday that the occupation tanks deliberately obstructed ambulances coordinated with the World Health Organization, barring their passage and even opening fire nearby. Medical crews and patients already battling for survival found themselves in the line of fire. Palestinian prisoners' organizations have sounded the alarm over the Zionist occupation's rearrest of Isra Ghanimat, a former detainee freed in the last prisoner exchange. Calling it a dangerous precedent, they warn it casts a shadow over the future deals and expose the occupation's disregard for agreements. Meanwhile, the raids continue overnight. Occupation forces stormed towns across the occupied West Bank, seizing at least 20 Palestinians, children, former prisoners, and even a previously released detainee. The Palestinian Prisoners Club reports staggering figures. Since the assault on Tulkarm and Jenin began, at least 480 Palestinians have been detained, 300 in Jenin over 43 days, 180 in Tulkarm over 37 days. In the occupied West Bank, still, the Palestinian Ministry of Health confirmed Tuesday that 2 young men were killed by the Zionist occupation gunfire in Jenin. At dawn, occupation forces stormed the city's eastern neighborhood, opening fire indiscriminately. One of the martyrs' bodies remains in the grip of the occupation. International relief volunteers in Gaza are sounding the alarm. Humanitarian aid remains blocked, leaving the besieged population in an even tighter chokehold. With access suspended, vital relief efforts are at standstill. For more details, here's Sermon Nassim.
In the heart of Khan Yunis, where hunger gnaws at young and old alike, a makeshift soup kitchen becomes a beacon of resilience. Volunteers laid out steaming portions of mujadara, rice and lentils. Abu Omar, one of the kitchen's organizers, had laid out meticulous plans for Ramadan, a time of charity and communal feasts. But those plans were thrown into disarray as the Zionist entity tightened its blockade, choking off vital supplies.
On the first day of Ramadan, we served around 1,200 to 1,400 portions of meat and rice. But with border crossings shut and markets running dry, we now serve nothing more than mujaddara and soup.
The blockade imposed on March 2nd has left Gaza teetering on the brink. Humanitarian aid trucks stand idle, prevented from entering the enclave, as the fragile ceasefire hangs by a thread.
Food and water all come through the crossings. We desperately need them to remain open, or how else can we feed people? The Aisha kitchen alone serves 1,200 meals a day. That's no small number.
Meanwhile, as the first phase of the truce expires, the next steps remain shrouded in uncertainty. Hamas demands a permanent withdrawal and an end to the genocide, while the Zionist entity offers only a temporary extension until April, dangling the prospect of prisoner exchanges but refusing to discuss Gaza's future. In a land where every meal is a battle, every blockade is a weapon, and every ceasefire a mere pause in the suffering, the people of Gaza remain hostages to war, politics, and a world that watches from the sidelines.
In a similar note, Algeria has raised the alarm over the deepening humanitarian catastrophe in the occupied Palestinian territories. Addressing the UN Human Rights Council, Algeria's representative in Geneva, Rachid Beledhan, condemned the Zionist occupation's ongoing war of extermination against the Palestinian people, despite the ceasefire agreement in Gaza.
Algeria expresses its concern over the ongoing deterioration of human rights situation in the occupied Palestinian territories as a result of the genocide war perpetrated by the Zionist occupation since October 2023. The repercussions of which are still being felt despite the international mediation efforts that led to a ceasefire agreement.
Algeria has issued a warning against attempts to sideline the Palestinian cause and erase its people from the global stage. Speaking at the extraordinary Arab summit in Cairo, Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf stressed the growing threat to the Palestinian national project, cautioning against efforts to strip it of its rightful representatives.
The Palestinian people have faced and continue to face various challenges, enduring the most severe and cruel forms of suffering, and have made countless and indescribable sacrifices. But the current situation of the Palestinian people is the most serious. Current danger is the danger of dispersing a people after trying to exterminate it, the danger of exporting a people after confiscating its land, the danger of aborting a national project by depriving it of its bearers, and in a single significant phrase, the danger today is the danger of erasing the Palestinian people from history.
Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf met with his Tunisian counterpart Mohamed Ali Nafti ahead of the Emergency Arab Summit in Cairo. According to the Algerian Foreign Ministry, their talks centered on the challenges facing the Palestinian cause and the summit's anticipated outcomes. Beyond regional concerns, the two diplomats also explored ways to deepen bilateral partnership and integration, laying the groundwork for future cooperation in key upcoming events. The Libyan government of national unity has firmly rejected claims that the country is taking in Palestinian refugees. In a statement on its official Facebook page, the government dismissed a report by American thinker as entirely baseless, asserting that no Libyan authority has made such commitments. Shifting focus to Lebanon now, the Lebanese civil defense has confirmed the death of one person in a Zionist airstrike on a vehicle in the Tyre district. According to the Lebanese news agency, occupation drones struck the car, leaving no survivors. Meanwhile, Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri has raised the alarm over fresh territorial violations, revealing that Zionist forces have reoccupied a 2-kilometer strip inside Lebanon. He made it clear Lebanon will not tolerate new occupation realities. Urging the international community to take action, he firmly rejected any attempt to weaponize aid at the expense of Lebanon's sovereignty. Moving on to a different matter now, French President Emmanuel Macron has taken the Algeria file out of the hands of Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau and Prime Minister François Bayrou, signaling a shift in handling the diplomatic crisis. In an interview with Le Figaro on Monday, Macron dismissed Retailleau's claims that Algeria is uncooperative on deportations, confirming that consular permits are being issued at levels comparable to other Maghreb and African nations. He also emphasized his preference for renegotiating the 1968 agreement with Algeria rather than scrapping it unilaterally.
I'm the one who decides regarding the 1968 agreement, and discussing the agreement falls within my jurisdiction. I prefer to reconsider it with the Algerian side based on a pragmatic approach rather than unilaterally revoking it. The number of 3,000 consular permits granted by Algeria in 2024 for the repatriation of its citizens is not bad compared to other countries such as Morocco, Tunisia and even Mali.
The Algerian news agency has fiercely condemned the France 2 report as a media scandal driven by a political agenda. In a statement Tuesday, it criticized the segment When Algeria Seeks to Silence Its Opponents, aired during the channel's primetime news, for pushing claims of Algerian interference in French affairs. Denouncing the piece as a blatant conspiracy devoid of journalistic ethics, the agency called it unprofessional hit job and worthy of a public broadcaster. Algeria is making waves on the diplomatic front, sealing a series of strategic partnerships in a bid to broaden its alliances and bolster regional development. This proactive approach is not just about diplomacy. It's about action with investments aimed at strengthening infrastructure and key projects across the Maghreb and Africa. Zara Farjani reports.
Algeria is steadily broadening its international partnerships, securing beneficial deals across key sectors to reinforce its regional and global standing and faced by opposition or external pressures. This approach has earned Algeria recognition from major global players, including Italy, whose Deputy Prime Minister reaffirmed Rome's commitment to deepening ties.
We are the fourth largest trading power globally and the second largest industrial power in Europe. And we want to invest all these strengths to enhance cooperation with a friendly country.
Algeria has actively strengthened relations with European Union nations, as emphasized by Portuguese President.
It is a visit that will establish very strong future relations between Algeria and Italy.
Algeria's balanced diplomacy fosters respect from both East and West, despite rejecting global polarization. U.S. AFRICOM Commander Michael Langley also acknowledged Algeria's growing influence. At the regional level, Algeria continues fostering strong ties within the Maghreb and Africa, with Niger's foreign minister highlighting ongoing bilateral projects.
We discussed the gas pipeline link in Niger, Nigeria, and Algeria. Recently, there was a meeting between the relevant ministers. This project will add value to Nigeria's gas, which will be exported to Europe.
Advocating for a multipolar world order, Algeria remains committed to expanding its partnerships to bolster its economy, diplomacy, and global stature.
Still with Algeria's related news, Algeria, Tunisia and Libya have taken key steps to ensure the success of the upcoming tripartite summit in Tripoli. This was confirmed following a high-level meeting between Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, his Tunisian counterpart Mohamed Ali Nafti, and Libya's Tahar al-Baour ahead of the Emergency Arab Summit, according to the Algerian Foreign Ministry. The ministry added that discussions centered on progress since the last summit in Tunisia last April, underscoring the trio's commitment to regional coordination and stability. Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf held talks with his Mauritanian counterpart Mohamed Salem Ould Marzouk to discuss key regional and international issues. According to Algerian Foreign Ministry, saying the meeting also emphasized strengthening bilateral relations and cooperation. The discussions came as Attaf prepared to take part in the Emergency Arab Summit in Cairo, reinforcing Algeria's active role in regional diplomacy. Algeria has called for closer security of Moroccan violations in the occupied Sahrawi territories. Addressing the UN Human Rights Council, Algeria's representative in Geneva, Rachid Beledhan, pressed for the deployment of a UN mission to investigate human rights abuses in Western Sahara. Beledhan denounced Morocco's systematic violations and underscored the human tragedies stemming from prolonged occupation, not only in Western Sahara, but also in Palestine.
The delegation of my country remains deeply concerned about the systematic violations of human rights and international humanitarian law in the occupied territory of Western Sahara, and has requested that these violations be documented, urging the High Commissioner to send an investigative mission to the region and to present a detailed report to the Council on this matter.
Meanwhile, the Geneva Group for Supporting Western Sahara has urged the United Nations to establish an urgent human rights monitoring mechanism in the occupied Sahrawi territories. Addressing the UN Human Rights Council, the group condemned Morocco's systematic violations, the exclusion of international observers, and the targeting of Sahrawi rights defenders. Reaffirming that self-determination is central to resolving the conflict, the group warned that denying the right constitutes a serious breach of international law. It also denounced Morocco's continued exploitation of Sahrawi resources, calling for accountability and international oversight.
Morocco's occupation of Western Sahara violates human rights, with ongoing obstruction of UN human rights monitoring. The Geneva Group calls for respecting the rights to self-determination and ending the occupation, warning against any actions that legitimize it. Morocco's illegal exploitation of resources prolongs the conflict and hinders a political solution.
French-based Moroccan journalist Dounia Filali has alleged that Crown Prince Hassan of Morocco survived an assassination attempt that claimed the life of his private driver. In a video on her YouTube channel, Filali suggested that security measures around the prince have since been heightened, citing growing internal tensions within the Alawi dynasty over King Six's succession. Moving on to the United States now, President Donald Trump's new tariffs on imports from Mexico, Canada, and China took effect on March 4, further fueling tensions in the ongoing trade war. The measures threaten to disrupt trillions in trade, dealing a blow to industries depend on cross-border commerce. Yasin Erikti reports now.
The winds of economic conflict are blowing once again as Washington turns up the heat on its closest trade partners. US President Donald Trump has fired the first shot, a sweeping 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico, set to take effect Tuesday. Calling tariffs a quick and effective equalizer, Trump insists they will level the playing field and push companies to reshore production. And the UK, it may be next in line.
But very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States, in which case they have no tariffs.
But if Washington thought its neighbors would take this line down, it was sorely mistaken. Canada has struck back, imposing $20 billion tariffs in countermeasures, with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau vowing to hold the line until the US backs down. South of the border, Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum slammed the move as unjustified, reminding Washington that Mexico is its biggest trading partner.
So today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. At the moment, the US tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
Hemos decidido responder.
We have decided to respond with tariff and non-tariff measures that I will announce in a public square next Sunday. It is by no means our purpose to start an economic or trade confrontation.
Across the Pacific, Beijing is making its move. New tariffs of up to 15% on US goods took effect today, a direct counter-strike to Washington's latest measures. But China isn't stopping there. 10 American firms have been added to its unreliable entities list, effectively barring them from business in China. A trade war may be a game of chicken, but Beijing is in no mood to blink. Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian dismissed US tactics as economic warfare, warning if Washington wants a trade war, China will fight to the end.
If the US truly wants to resolve the issue, it should engage in consultations with China on basis of equality, mutual respect, and reciprocity to address each other's concerns. However, if the US harbors ulterior motives and insists on waging a tariff war, trade war, or any other kind of war, China will play along to the end. We urge the US to abandon its bullying stance and return to the right track of dialogue and cooperation as soon as possible.
At the heart of this standoff lies a fragile US trade balance, already weighed down by billions in deficits, with major economies locked in retaliation. The stakes are rising, and so is the risk of an all-out economic confrontation. How far will this showdown go? Only time will tell.
Moving on to another global news story. Tensions over the Ukraine war are mounting following the last week's heated exchange between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky. Kiev has floated the idea of a truce to pave the way for peace talks, while U.S. media report that Washington is halting aid to reassess its role pending Trump's approval. Sofian Kanturi reports now.
Tensions over Ukraine are shifting fast. A fiery clash between U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has triggered a major shakeup, one that could reshape the war's trajectory.
President Zelensky are going to have to get...
In a stunning move, Trump has halted all military aid to Ukraine. Fox News and Axios report the freeze will hold until Kiev proves its commitment to peace. The White House insists this is a pause, not an end, but the message is clear. Ukraine must reconsider its approach. Sensing the shift, Zelensky is now calling for a truce, offering to halt air and sea hostilities if Russia does the same. Meanwhile, his government remains eager to keep economic ties with Washington alive, pushing for minerals deal with the U.S.
Today at the staff meeting, we addressed some special issues concerning our state's resilience. We're working through all possible scenarios to protect Ukraine. The primary scenario is to maintain our position and create conditions for proper diplomacy, ensuring that this war ends as soon as possible with a decent peace. We need peace, real, fair peace, not an endless war, and we need security guarantees.
For the Kremlin, the U.S. aid freeze is a win. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov calls it the best step toward peace, hoping it pushes Kiev to negotiate. But Moscow has its own conditions, linking anything with the U.S. to lifting sanctions.
While suspensions of US military aid to Ukraine may play the key role, most of all supplies of so-called military products come from the United States. All the intelligence data, mostly satellite intelligence data and so on, is mostly coming from the United States.
As Washington steps back, Brussels steps up. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen unveils €800 billion rearmament plan, with €150 billion in defense loans, ensuring Ukraine isn't left out in the cold.
We are in an era of rearmament, and Europe is ready to massively boost its defense spending, both to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
With Washington hesitating, Moscow watching, and Europe arming up, the war's next chapter is unfolding fast.
On day 2 of the MWC 2025 in Barcelona, Algeria's telecommunication minister Said Ali Zarouki visited Huawei's exhibit, reaffirming Algeria's commitment to digital transformation. He explored Huawei's latest AI innovations, underscoring efforts to enhance global tech collaboration. Meanwhile, Huawei showcased cutting-edge AI-driven solutions, including AI Drama, which transforms bugs into videos, and AI agent technology for next-gen broadband services, highlighting its expanding AI footprint and deepening ties with Algeria's telecom sector. More news stories making headlines around the globe in the news in brief.
Iran confirmed on Tuesday its rejection of negotiating its nuclear file under what is known as the maximum pressure policy. Iranian government spokesperson Fatima Mohajirani stated at a press conference in Tehran that her country does not reject negotiations outright, but will not accept an insult similar to the one faced by President Zelensky.
The Sudanese army regained control of strategic sites east of Khartoum after battling the rapid support forces. Intensified shelling hit rapid support positions, while the army destroyed 7 of their vehicles near Al-Fasher. Meanwhile, over 3,450 families were displaced in North Darfur due to worsening insecurity, according to the International Organization for Migration.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has once again rejected talks with the March 23 movement, which has gained control over parts of eastern Congo, escalating the conflict. However, Prime Minister Judith Emmanuel Toloka told the BBC that the government is open to negotiations with neighboring Rwanda, which Congo accuses of supporting the group in an effort to de-escalate regional tensions.
Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama initiated national economic dialogue aimed at guiding the country's economic growth. Speaking to participants in the capital Accra, Mahama emphasized the significance of the meeting, which will focus on finding solutions to Ghana's ongoing economic issues and developing strategies to steer the country towards sustainable growth.
And that's the end of our news program for tonight. Thank you for watching. See you next time.